going to ask a question about, like, it is a bit of a paranoid question. I feel like light workers are being. I feel like light workers are being watched on a like we're being watched, of course, on a universal level. However, I feel like we're being watched on a physical level as well. Would the SOTU agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are they doing with this information?
Nothing positive. Listen.
Okay.
They are trying to and have been trying to figure out how you translate emotion, pure emotion, into physicality. Okay? That's the one dynamic that earthly humanity has that none of the other species in the universe completely understand. They don't know how you got it. They don't know where it came from, and they don't know how to claim it for themselves. Because that's what they're trying to do, and they're trying to keep you as a species from discovering the true power that you have to turn pure energy, to turn divine energy into physicality. Okay?
Yeah.
And because they have not been able to figure that out, they've been screwing with you for many, many centuries. And if nothing else, they haven't been able to figure you out and figure out how it happens, but they have figured out how to keep you from being more powerful. Now, that only works with a species that is immature. And so you understand that they first came upon you when you were in your infancy, when you were in your childhood as a species. And you had an ability back then that they did not even realize, because even then you were translating non-physical, the energy of that all of you call love energy, which is really, in fact, just the raw material of creation, that you were taking already back in your infancy, even that energy, and it was manifesting in such a way as you called it paradise, you called it the Garden of Eden, you called it, there's many metaphors for the dynamic, but basically simply it was the reflection of you as a species had a collective consciousness that satisfied and provided for all of your needs. If you were hungry, fruit would manifest on the trees. If you, wanted to procreate, you did. There were really no dynamics of rules. You played, you ate, you copulated, and, that was life back in those days. And so, any other species, especially an advanced species, would come in and look and say, oh, look at the little monkeys, aren't they cute, and all of that stuff. And it was, so you started out, you began as a species, even a more primitive species that already had the ability to manifest collectively. So it was a collective consciousness in its true form. But just as every species moves and grows, so too as a species did you move and grow, just as every child needs to separate from the mother and father to develop an identity of their own. So it was necessary for you to separate from each other, from nature, from spirit, to begin this long road, which we call the adolescence of your species, when you left the garden. And you have been operating in the world where you have been developing, each of you, instead of a collective consciousness, instead of a collective awareness, you have been developing an individual awareness. And so in that level of understanding, that basically put it in overly simplistic terms, back in the garden experience, you had a collective relationship with all that is, and now each of you in your own way, whether you admit it or not, has developed an individual belief and an individual relationship with all that is. And if you realize that that was the purpose of the journey in the first place, that you realize that you have kind of taken that pendulum swing a little too far in the individuation direction. So it's with that sort of that dynamic of realization, you stand on the verge of your adulthood as a species, realizing that the old way doesn't create a dynamic of fairness, and that feeling, that awakening that is leading to what shall we say, protestations against the unfairness are really primarily what is manifesting now. And so reality will keep forcing you until you come up with a solution to the problem, which basically is, how do you create a world that still has all of the vitality that this world has, and yet still provide a safety net for everyone and an equal playing field to begin with? And then to practice diversity, to play with the competition from that place of that safety net having already been provided. It is going to create a whole different system. It will create a whole different mindset, and it will allow earthly humanity to move into its adulthood as a species. So how is that for long-winded?
Well, okay, so we go back to the collective. Is that what I'm getting?
It's not back.
Or the adulthood? Okay.
It's not back. It's about not losing one bit of that hard-fought, hard-won individuation, but again, consciously reconnecting with each other. So yes, it's not that you're moving to collectivism in that sort of way, because you want the best parts of both worlds. You want best parts of, it's getting to the point where you're becoming so technologically advanced as a species that there are not going to be enough jobs in the labor market for everyone. So that, therefore, as more automation takes over, as artificial intelligence takes over, but it's going to be a heart-centered technology, a heart-centered artificial intelligence. All right, so it's not going to be what are those? The Terminator movies. It's not going to be War of the Worlds or anything like that. In fact, because what is happening is the awakening that is taking place is a dynamic where everyone is becoming a lot more heart-centered, even the psychopaths.
Well, they've always been sort of heart-centered.
Yeah. So, it's that's what's happening. You're growing up as a species. But it's not about going back. It's about going forward, because if you're not going to learn from your experience, or if you're not going to learn the lessons of the past, then there's no wisdom to be gained. You can only have wisdom by remembering the screw-ups of the past.
Well, exactly. Yeah.